Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today is the most auspicious day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada's appearance, and it's big celebration here in Mayapur. The Samadhi of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is here, and it's a grand celebration going on there, and also in our ISKCON temple and many Gaudiya mats, because of course he was the one whose disciples established all the Gaudiya mats here in Mayapur. So it's a big day here in Mayapur, and I wanted to read today about the life, especially about the appearance and early life of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur from Rupa Vilasa's Prabhu famous book, The Ray of Vishnu. He did wonderful research, and it's very nice narration and will help us to meditate on the lotus feet of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And of course, on these days, it's a wonderful opportunity to pray to the great Vaishnavas, especially to our spiritual. For some of us, he's a spiritual grandfather. Of course, for Srila Prabhupada's disciples, he is a spiritual grandfather. And ask them to be able to fulfill his mission, which is a mission of Srila Prabhupada, which is a mission of our gurus, those who are second generation devotees. And mission of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the mission of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gauranga Babaji Maharaj, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, Srila Goswami, Lord Chaitanya. It's our highest aspiration, of course, is to go back to Krishna and attain our original position in our relationship with Krishna, and also attain our position in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. But we only be able to do this through the service of our Guru, Param Guru, and what is Param Guru? Right, and attaining their mercy, because on our own merit, on our own qualification, it is impossible to do it within one lifetime, 2 lifetimes, or many lifetimes. It's always a mercy, an extra special mercy which Srila Prabhupada extended to all of us, and the mission which he gave, and we can be actively engaged in this mission by engaging our preaching mission, right? We engage in all our faculties, on all our abilities, engage in our different inclinations, but all of that alone with deepening our own Krishna consciousness, of course, it just to further Krishna consciousness, spread Krishna consciousness far and wide, and give it to as many conditioned souls as possible, in the same way as we were given. And we want to pray to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on his appearance day to empower us to be useful instruments in this mission, to be humble servants, and to be protected from the onslaughts of Maya and all the allurements of the material world, and be 100% focused on mission of pleasing him, Srila Prabhupada, our gurus, Lord Chaitanya, Radha and Krishna, ultimately, Lord Nityananda. So before we start reading the Ray of Vishnu, I want that we recite Pranam mantra of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Tinamine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter of His lotus feet. Shri Varshabhana Videvi Daitaya Kripabdhaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitya Dasa, another name of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who is favored by Srimati Radharani and who is the ocean of transcendental mercy and the deliverer of the science of Krishna. Madhurya Jvala Premadhya Shirupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the personified energy of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, who deliver devotional service which is enriched with conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, coming exactly in the line of revelation of Srila Rupa Goswami. Namaste Gauravani Shimurtaya Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudha Pasidanta Dvanta Harine. I offer my respectful obeisance unto you, who are the personified teaching of Lord Chaitanya, who are the deliverer of fallen souls. You do not tolerate any statement which is against of teaching of devotional service enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. We know that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was known as Lion Guru and very uncompromising personality. At the same time, very liberal personality when it came to preaching and bringing people to Krishna. And there's an anecdote that he was even ready to sell cigarettes at the guest house or even serve meat to the VIP guests. Now, this is not something that could be imitated, but we could see the liberality of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on one hand, and of course he is the one who started using overcoats and using cars even to go to Radha Kund, and he is the one who fully embraced the principle of Yukta Vairagya. But at the same time, he was 100% uncompromising and cutting towards any apasiddhanta and any smart notions of the Vaishnavism. And his famous discourse, Brahmana Vaishnavas, is a brilliant way of how he presented the topic, right? He first completely glorified the Brahmanas, and all the Brahmanas in the assembly were so happy and said, oh, yeah, we just want to hear that. And then he completely brought the Vaishnava, that Vaishnava is not dependent on being a Brahmana, and in fact Vaishnava is much higher than a Brahmana. So he first kind of established the Brahmana at the highest status of spiritual life, and then he said, but there's a transcendental stage, and this is a Vaishnava. Anyway, so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was very, very forceful preacher, very uncompromising preacher, both to himself and to others. At the same time, he was also liberal when it came to preaching Krishna consciousness and bringing it to others. And also, he is known, as we see, that he was the Varshabhana Devi Daitya Dasa, right? So he was somebody who is favored by Srimati Radharani. We know that his identity is revealed to us as Nayana Mani Manjari, and of course, as many of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, he is also Manjari, a servant of Srimati Radharani, in the Ghana of Sri Lalita Devi, under who is the main Manjari in under Lalita Devi is Srila Rupa Manjari. So therefore we all Rupanugas. We follow in Rupa Goswamis in Chaitanya Lila and as sadhakas, and then we follow majority of Gaudiya Vaishnavas follow Rupa Manjari in the spiritual world. Anyway, so let's say the rest of Pranams for Srila Prabhupada, and we start reading not the whole book, but at least we start reading when we have many more celebrations, and then we go through other parts of the book, Ray of Vishnu. maybe one day we start reading Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, a huge trilogy by His Holiness Bhaktivinoda Swami. That really something one can get absorbed in for a long time. Anyway, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashitya Deshatarine Om Agyanti Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmiritamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarupyasya Kripa Sindhu Deva Cha Patitanam Pavanapyo Vaishnavapyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we're reading from the Ray of Vishnu, Advent. On the 5th day of the dark lunar fortnight of the month of Govinda, corresponding to February 6, 1874 AD by the Western calendar, at the 3:30 in the afternoon, Bimal Prasad Datta, later to be known as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, made his appearance in Purushottama Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, in the state of Orissa, not far from the temple of Lord Jagannath. He was the fourth son of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Sri Yukta Bhagavati Devi. At the time of his birth, all 32 bodily symptoms of Mahapurusha, a great personality, were pointed out by the experienced astrologer. Furthermore, the boy was born with an umbilical cord wrapped around his neck like a Brahmin thread. The astrologer commented at his birth, "I have done many horoscopes in my life, but I have never before seen such a horoscope filled with all the signs of great personality. This child will become world famous as a brilliant teacher of life's ultimate goal." When the child was 6 months old, Lord Jagannath's Ratha Yatra festival was in procession, and the chariot stopped in front of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house for 3 days. Following the instruction of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhagavati Devi brought the child before the cart. An offered garland fell from the neck of the Lord, encircling the body. This was taken as a sign of special favor by all present. The grain ceremony was observed on the cart at that time and was done with Jagannath Prasad. So immediately the garland fell, and then on the cart the grain ceremony was performed with Jagannath Prasad, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur was superintendent of Jagannath's temple. And so it was very, very possible, of course, besides from being a pure devotee and greatest acharya of the time. No? When the boy's vocational inclination was tested, he immediately embraced the Srimad Bhagavatam, indicating his future as a preacher. Therefore, from the very beginning of his appearance, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur exhibited all the signs of an exalted, eternal associate of the Lord who had descended in answer to Srila Bhaktivinoda's prayer for a ray of Vishnu to help him spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Also, family lineage may be ultimately irrelevant when considering the appearance of eternally liberated associate of the Lord. Still, it is interesting to see what sort of family is blessed with such a transcendental personality. As history shows us, Lord Brahma himself appeared in the family of Muslims as Srila Haridas Thakur, and there are other instances of exalted persons taking birth in humble families. Still, as a point of interest, we may hear something of the lineage of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. His family line traces back to Lord Brahma from the descendants of Chitragupta, and they are known as Brahma Kayasthas. Bharata is in 87th generation from Chitragupta. Bharadvaj is the 88th. After him came Angira, and after him appeared Brihaspati. In 149th generation of descendants, Purushottama, son of Sitadvaita, went to Bengal. Upon the son of the king of Bengal, Adisura. Purushottama's youngest son took sannyasa and became famous as Kanaka Dandi. In the 7th and 8th generation of Purushottama's family, Vinayaka and his son Narayana Datta both did ministerial work for the king of Bengal. In the 15th generation from Purushottama, Raja Krishnananda, the king of Keturi in Bengal, and the father of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, the great Vaishnava Acharya, appeared. Raja Krishnananda was also a great devotee and was personality favored by Lord Nityananda Prabhu. The 7th generation from Raja Krishnananda saw the appearance of Madan Mohan Datta, who was very famous in Bengal and Calcutta for his spiritual qualities. His great-grandson was Ananda Chandra Datta, and his son was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whose first son was Bimal Prasad. The name Bimal of Sri Bimal, the name Bimala or Sri Bimala Devi refers to Parashakti, internal potency of Lord Jagannatha. So his name literally means the mercy of the internal potency of the Lord. Bimal Prasad stayed in Jagannath Puri for 10 months after his appearance and then journeyed to Bengal by palanquin on his mother's lap. He grew up in his early years in Ranaghat in the district of Nadia, hearing about Krishna from his mother. When he was a small boy, perhaps 2 or 3 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought some ripe mangoes from the market. Bimal Prasad took one to eat, saying, "This is mine." Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur got up and said in a grave voice, "What is this? New fruit has come into the house. It has not been offered to Giridhari, and you have taken it first. Remember, new fruit is to be given first to the Lord. Without giving the first share to the Lord, nothing is to be taken." The child was very repentant and explained, "Oh, what evil thoughts I have had. Throughout my whole life I shall not eat this again. This is the right punishment for one ruled by greed." He made the promise and observed it throughout his whole life. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, commented on this incident. Whenever we offered him mango, he said, "No, I'm an offender. I cannot take mango." He was thinking that I have offended Krishna in my childhood by taking the mango of the deity. So this is the characteristic of the Acharya. They teach by their life's action. One should be so much determined. A child took the mango, there is no offense, but he took that vow. You can imagine, right? We all have small children. Some of us have small children, and they take something to eat. You take, this is not offered to Krishna. Well, some of our children may say, "Oh, sorry, I go offer," but they would never think that they are big offenders. It's children are children, right? There's no offense, but not in the case of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who is Mahapurusha and pure devotee descended. So from the childhood, he was exhibiting signs of great devotion. Education. When Bimal Prasad was 7 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was constructing the Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta at Ramabagana. During that construction, the deity of Lord Kurma was unearthed. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ordered his son to begin regular worship of the deity. From the very beginning, the boy used to hear the preaching of his father with rapt attention. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as well as his audience, were amazed to see how a small boy could hear the topics of Krishna consciousness with such total absorption. By the age of 7, he had committed the entire Bhagavad Gita to memory and could wonderfully explain the verses as well. Later on, he was trained in publishing and proofreading as Bhaktivinoda Thakur's printing press in connection with the Thakur's well-known spiritual journal, the Sajjana Toshan. At the age of 11, Bimal Prasad toured the various places of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leelas with his father. Bimal Prasad had an eidetic memory. Whatever he would read once, he could later recall with perfect clarity. He was trained in mathematics and astrology. at the Sri Ramapur school, and he achieved such astounding scholarship that he was eventually awarded the title Siddhanta Saraswati by his tutors. Pandit Mahesh Chandra Chauramani and Pandit Sundarlal. Those were his tutors. During this period, he used to attend the Sunday weekly meetings of Thakur Bhaktivinoda's Vishva Vaishnava Raja Sabha and hear the Thakur's lectures on the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Srila Rupa Goswami. He never known to study his school assignments, and while sitting at home, would replace those assignments with studies of Srila Narottam Das Thakur's Prarthana, Prema Bhakti Chandrika, and other devotional literatures. However, whatever questions he was asked by his teachers, he would immediately answer, and he got excellent results on all of his examinations. He used to debate everyone he met on all sorts of subjects. No one who argued with him was ever able to defeat him, just as Lord Chaitanya Prabhu had defeated great scholar Keshava Kashmiri at a young age. So similarly, Bimal Prasad once, during his later college days, debated a scholar named Panchanana Sahityacharya, the disciple of Vasudeva Shastri, a very famous professor of that time on topics of astrological calculation. The debate was held in the home of Sri Rajendra Chandra Shastri and judged by him as well. After some discussion, that scholar had to accept defeat. In fact, the scholar became so mortified that he could not check the calls of nature. After that, everyone was reluctant to debate him for the fear of being defeated. At the age of 11, while in the 5th class, Bimal Prasad invented a type of short-handed writing called Bichanto. And it was during this period that he took a tour of the holy places with his father. When the boy was in 7th class, equivalent to today's 8th class, and about 13 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought Tulasi beads for his son from Jagannath Puri and gave him the name of Hari and Nrisimha mantra to chant, which he executed very faithfully, along with the worship of his Kurma deity according to the instruction of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. At the age of 16, while his schooling continued, the books of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur formed the serious content of his studies. He also began writing books on astrology, and during this time he formed the Chirakumara Sabha, or the August Assembly, amongst his friends with whom he met regularly at Calcutta's Binan Square. There they used to discuss topics related to religion, and the members were required to take a vow of celibacy. The society was formed with the purpose of giving people a chance to remain seriously engaged in worship of the Lord and detached from family life. But Bimal Prasad was the only one who observed his vows immaculately. In 1892, at the age of 18, he took the entire entrance examination and entered Calcutta's Sanskrit College. As before, he paid scant attention to the prescribed books, but he found the time to read all the philosophical books contained in the library. During his college holidays, he would discuss Vedas with a scholar, Shriyukta Prithvidhara Sharma. Although Siddhanta Saraswati had become learned in all 6 branches of Vedic knowledge: Shiksha, pronunciation; Kalpa, sequences of Vedic sacrifice; Vyakarana, grammar, especially the use of word truths, inflected words and sentences; Nirukta, meaning of the inflected words and word truths; Chandaha, the recitation of Vedic mantras; and Jyotish, astrological and astronomical calculation. Still, to study the Vyakarana, the grammatical branch of the Vedas, he approached the Pandit Prithvidhara Sharma. The Pandit praised him for his achievements and encouraged him to study Siddhanta Kaumudi throughout his life. Siddhanta Saraswati replied, "My life is for the single-minded cultivation of the teaching of Sri Chaitanya, not for the cultivation of grammar. I have only studied the Vedas the branches of the Vedas and their related parts in a secondary manner. In 1895, he left the college as he was very eager to execute his worship of the Lord and to remain free from the pressure to enter family life. He stated in his autobiography, "If I remain studying with careful attention at the college, then extreme pressure will be brought upon me to enter family life. But if I am considered to be foolish and inefficient, then no one will put such an inducement upon me for becoming so engaged. By this consideration, I left the Sanskrit college, and in order to maintain my life for the service of Hari, I was desirous of getting an honest occupation which I could perform with the intention of earning humble income." So we see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, again, all our acharyas pay very little heed to material prosperity or material positioning, wealth. They just did as bare minimum as necessary, and they choose something which would not impede their becoming absorbed in service of the Lord and of their hearing and chanting. So he just quit the college and just was finding something which would help him to earn humble income. During his student days, he also wrote essays on spiritual topics for various magazines and strongly condemned various religious malpractices which had become prominent in society. At the Bhakti Bhavan in 1897, he established a Chatushpati, a small academy called Saraswati Chatushpati, where many learned persons from Calcutta attended his lectures and discourses on astronomy. He also published the magazine Jyotirvid and Brihaspati and other old astrological texts like Surya Siddhanta, famous and highly regarded Sanskrit astronomical treatise. Here he also established and edited the Bhakti Panjika, an almanac. He was well acquainted with both the eastern and western branches of astrology, but naturally favored the Vedic one. He was offered a chair in astronomy at the University of Calcutta by Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, but Siddhanta Saraswati declined it, thinking it an impediment to his spiritual life. At the request of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, he composed Sri Navadvipa Panjika, a Krishnized almanac, in which the months, lunar fortnights, days, lunar days, stars, etc. were all given names of Vishnu. He did not spend very long in his astronomical pursuits, however, and soon dedicated himself fully to the worship and distribution of the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By the way, as far as I know, the Vaishnava calendar which we use for today's, for example, reading, was compiled by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. That's what I've heard. I'm not 100% sure, but anybody who wants, please check, and you can comment if you find something different or if you find the confirmation. He was also employed by the royal king of Tripura from 1895 to 1905 in various services. Initially, he accepted the post of editor under Panchashrika Maharaj Virachandra Manikya Bahadur, and he edited a history of their family entitled Raj Ratnakar. During this time, he studied all the principal books in the royal library. A year later, however, the Maharaj departed from this world. The succeeding king, Maharaj Radha Kishore Manikya Bahadur, entrusted Siddhanta Saraswati with the instruction of the sons of the king in Bengal and Sanskrit. So, he was instructing his sons in Bengal and Sanskrit. The king also requested him to put an end to various cheating activities of persons who were misappropriating royal wealth. Siddhanta Saraswati quickly stopped this nonsense, much to the delight of the king. He assisted the royal family in different ways until 1905. At that time, he requested to be given leave And this was granted along with full pension, which he accepted for some time and then later discarded. So he got full pension, and then he discarded the pension also. During this 10-year period, many other significant events took place as well. In 1897, he began to strictly observe the vows of Chaturmasya, including the practice of cooking for himself, one preparation daily, taking the food from the ground and lying on the earth without any bedding or pillow. In 1898, he toured Benares, Prayag, and Gaya with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur and discussed philosophy with persons in the line of Sri Ramanuja. In 1899, Siddhanta Saraswati published a number of articles on spiritual topics in a magazine called Nivedana, a Calcutta weekly. I think that's all what it is for today. Please read this wonderful book. I'll leave the link in the description. You can download PDF, Ray of Vishnu, and get yourself absorbed more and more in the pastimes of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, meditating on him, especially on this day. And whenever there's another celebration connected with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, usually it's December and February, right? His disappearance day and his appearance day. We will just continue where we left off, and this way we'll cover the whole book eventually. Krishna's willing, and with the blessing of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Jai, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Appearance Day Mahamahotsava ki jai, Srila Simha Gaura Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Haribo.